The Black Cat of Praia, Praia Santiago, Cabo Verde, 1895. The dry, salty wind swept through the narrow streets of Praia as dusk settled over the old city. The year was 1895, and Praia was bustling with the usual sounds of traders bartering for goods, fishermen returning from sea, and children playing in the dusty alleyways. But tonight something was different. A heavy, oppressive silence hung in the air, as if the island itself was holding its breath. João Calu Pereira, a man of modest means and deep superstitions, felt the weight of that silence as he walked home from the port. His hands still smelled of fish, and his legs ached from the long hours spent gutting the day's catch. But it wasn't the exhaustion that gnawed at him. It was the story he'd heard earlier at the tavern, whispered among the old men who still remembered the tales of the Gato Preto de Praia. The Black Cat. They said it came before death, a silent shadow that slinked through the streets, appearing at the doorways of those about to meet their end. Some claimed to have seen its glowing eyes peering through windows just before someone fell ill, while others swore they heard its eerie yowl before a storm ravaged the coast. Calu didn't want to believe in such things. He was a man of the sea, grounded in reality, or so he told himself. But there was something about the way the older men had spoken of the cat, their voices low, almost fearful, as if even mentioning it might summon the creature. That night, as Calu approached his small wooden shack on the outskirts of Praia, he felt the hair on the back of his neck prickle. The air was too still, too quiet. His home, a single-room dwelling perched near the edge of a rocky cliff, felt unusually cold as he stepped inside. His wife, Maria, was already asleep, her figure barely visible beneath a thin blanket. He poured himself a small glass of grog, hoping the sharp taste of the local rum would chase away his unease. But as the liquid burned his throat, a soft thud came from outside. His heart skipped. He set the glass down, listening. Another thud, this time closer. It could be nothing, he thought. A stray dog or a gust of wind blowing debris against the door. But the tales of the Black Cat clawed at his mind. Grabbing a lantern, Calu stepped outside. The faint light from the moon cast eerie shadows along the craggy terrain, and the sound of the ocean crashing against the rocks below filled the silence. He scanned the area, his eyes adjusting to the dim light, and saw nothing out of the ordinary until he turned toward the edge of the cliff. There, perched on a large boulder, was a black cat. Its fur shimmered in the moonlight, sleek and dark as night itself. Its eyes, bright, unnatural and glowing, stared directly at him, unblinking. Calu's breath hitched in his throat. It can't be. The cat let out a low, rumbling growl, a sound that seemed to vibrate deep within Calu's chest. He stepped back, but the cat didn't move. Instead, it sat there watching him, its eyes glowing like embers in the darkness. A wave of nausea washed over him. His mind raced, remembering the words of the old men. If you see the cat, death follows. Without thinking, Calu rushed back inside, slamming the door behind him. His hands shook as he bolted it shut. Maria stirred in her sleep, mumbling something unintelligible. He wanted to wake her, to tell her what he had seen, but a deep sense of dread stopped him. The hours crawled by, and sleep eluded him. The black cat's image burned into his mind. Was it really there? Was it a figment of his imagination, born from old legends and too much grog? Just as dawn began to break, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the streets of Praia. Calu bolted upright, his heart pounding. The scream had come from the neighbour's house, old Senora Matilde, a widow who lived alone. He grabbed his lantern and ran outside, ignoring the ache in his legs. When he arrived, a crowd had already gathered at Matilda's door. Her frail body lay crumpled in the doorway, her face twisted in terror. She was dead. The black cat was nowhere to be seen. Over the next few days, rumours spread like wildfire. They said the cat had been seen by several people that night, each reporting the same glowing eyes, the same unnatural stillness. Others swore they heard its ghostly yowl in the distance, a harbinger of doom. Some villagers whispered that it wasn't a mere cat but something darker, a spirit or demon sent to claim souls. As for Calu, He never spoke of the Black Cat again, but every night after he would glance at the cliffs before entering his home, searching the shadows for a pair of glowing eyes, and every time he saw a black cat in the streets of Praia, his blood would run cold. They say the Black Cat of Praia still roams the city, silently watching, waiting for the next soul to claim. And if you see it, pray that it's not staring back at you. Because in Praia, death wears black fur and glowing eyes.